Hi, it's Mike Paul from Mike Paul Real here. Um, Unusually consistent at the moment. This is my third day running where I have done a vlog, which is a record for me. So I'm a happy bunny at the moment. A couple of episodes ago, 2 days ago, I mentioned that I'd had a lot of serious stuff going on in my life, and I alluded to the possibility of me having adult ADD, ADHD, attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Um, I'm not going into how I've come to that conclusion, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about what it may be or what it might not be. Um, Similar to my approach from cancer, I went against the grain with my approach to dealing with cancer, and I'm going to do the same with this as well. So, typically, ADHD is a symptom based disorder with what they call dysfunction of our executive functions, things like impulse control, planning, time management, working memory, and it comes out in symptoms of forgetfulness, defiance, inability to focus, sometimes the ability to hyperfocus, but on stuff which maybe you shouldn't be focusing on, or you need to be able to move on to other things. Um, the hyperactivity often for children is moving too much, not or well, what is too much, but moving when they're expected not to move. So about I've seen varying estimates of what sort of percentage of the population this applies to, and anything from about 5 to 20%, depending on which book, article, research paper you read. But typically in Europe, my understanding is it's closer to 5%. And thankfully so, given that it's called a disorder. It would be a bit scary if there were more people than that with a disorder. Um, a lot of the symptoms, it is a symptom based diagnosis, whether you're a child or an adult. Um, but for it to be diagnosed in an adult, it has to have been shown that there were these symptoms in childhood as well. So, for many people, it has been difficult to understand and accept. A child that won't sit still when it's been told to sit still is often thought of as a naughty child or a defiant child. And in fact, we even have a syndrome or a disease or a condition, oppositional defiance condition, um, to work for that, executive order dysfunction. So I'm going to propose, or not propose, in my reading, I've managed to find a different perspective. And I'm now, because of my own situation, which I will talk more about in future um, podcast vlogs, I want to see the positive side of this, because for me, the negative approach is very limiting and it doesn't really help us get to the root of the problem. We can give kids drugs, we can give adults drugs, and sometimes it may help, sometimes it may not, but it's not getting to the root of the issue, which is leaving many, many people still suffering a degradation of their life quality. And there are worrying statistics. I mentioned maybe in Europe, 5% of the population, the general population, have ADHD. In the prison population, it's actually 15 to 25%, again, depending on what you read. If we put all addicts as a population, again, it would be upwards of 25% of those people would be ADHD. So there is something different about these people, which makes us in modern society and the modern environment, and that aspect is very important to bear in mind, that makes these people different and makes themselves live in seemingly harmful ways or make poor decisions, make poor behavioural choices. So what approach am I taking with this? I'm going to read you a story, and in true Jackanory style, if you're old enough to remember that, and then I'll talk a little bit about what it is. So here we go. I'm reading this from a book called The Drummer and the Great Mountain by Michael Joseph Ferguson, and this is from chapter 2, the hunter-farmer theory, and I'm reading an excerpt from this. It's 12,000 years ago. The sun is just rising up above the grasslands. In the distance, 4 buffalo who've wandered off from their herd are eating wild grasses and slowly meandering their way eastward. Armed with spears, you and your hunting party, consisting of 5 others from your tribe, creep slowly towards the unsuspecting animals. These buffalo are heaving masses of muscle and flesh that could easily trample you to death. All of your senses are heightened and alert. Nothing else exists in the world but the task at hand. With a slight nod of your head, 3 of the others move to one side of the herd and start to yell and wave their arms, which frightens one of the buffalo to run directly towards you. You watch with a focused, unwavering gaze as the giant bull approaches you, running at a clip of 30 miles an hour. At just the precise moment, you throw your spear, which pierces deep into the animal's flesh. Your accomplice also throws his spear, bringing down the beast only a few feet in front of you. Just then, you notice out of the corner of your eye, another bull is barreling towards you. Quickly, you shift your weight and dive to one side, barely missing the sharp pointed horns of the animal. As the dust settles, the hunting party gathers around the fallen animal, thanking it for giving its life to nourish you and your family. You then commence the preparations for bringing it back to your campsite. This one buffalo provides food for you and the families of your tribe for many days. It also provides fur and leather for clothes and shelter building, and horns for tool making. Back at the campsite, it's time to rest. It's not even midday. The hunt has only taken up part of the morning, but the food provided will last for days. The rest of your time is spent in shared ritual, art, tool making, and tending to your tribal responsibilities. Just picture that for a while. Now, let's zoom ahead a few thousand years. You're a farmer. You and your family tend 2 acres of land, growing wheat, barley, beans, and some herbs, with some domesticated livestock. On the outskirts of your land, you've planted fruit trees. You wake up at the crack of dawn, just as you've done every day for more years than you can count. After breakfast, you go into the field and begin sowing seeds. It's a long and tedious process, but it provides food for your family. Countless tasks need to get done by the end of each day. One by one, you go through your daily routine. It's back-breaking work, but by the end of the day, you feel satisfied with what you've accomplished. What keeps you going is the vision of harvest time, when the crops will have matured enough for picking and processing. The fruit trees on the edge of your land may not bear fruit for 4 or 5 years. In the meantime, you must ensure they are well watered and not trampled on by the animals. Very different picture. Let's take a closer look at these 2 different lifestyles. The hunter requires a very specific set of traits in order to survive and complete the task at hand. Hyperfocus, for short, intense periods of time. An ability to be distractible, scanning the horizon for game or for a potential threat. Sensitivity to the surrounding environment, listening for the slightest twig break or sensing the most infinitesimal movement. The capacity to be completely in the moment. Energy output consisting of times of high energy followed by times of relaxation after the hunt. Your time horizon is minutes and seconds, not months or years. Whereas the farmer requires a nearly opposite set of skills. An ability to do the same task day in, day out. A capacity to maintain focus and not get distracted. This translates into having successful crops, which your very survival depends on. A steady, day in, day out, even energy output. A time horizon that consists of months and years. Rewards happen much slower, and there is a need for always coming back to the big picture. Most of our ancestors were farmers, but all of our ancestors were hunters. No matter your nationality or the colour of your skin, every human being on the planet is descended from hunter-gatherers. Simply put, the hunter-farmer theory proposes people with ADD/ADHD are actually hunter types. We have inherited certain genetic traits and tendencies from our hunter ancestors that would have been positive attributes necessary for survival. That was an extract, as I said, from The Drummer and the Great Mountain, a guidebook to transforming adult ADD/ADHD. Thinking back to those two different scenarios, what we may see is that actually people in today's world who have the traits of the hunter type may struggle in a world which actually expects us all to behave and have the traits of the farmer type. We can see in the creative professions, which tend to have higher numbers of ADD/ADHD, or from now on going to refer to the hunter type, the problems many of these people have with living consistently, apparent mental health issues, the necessity to wake up every day to do the same thing. For someone who ancestrally has woken up to be able to play all day long as a child, and after many years, maybe only in your teens, to have to start thinking about tribal responsibilities, but through your play having learnt how to deliver those tribal responsibilities, is a far cry from the modern world, where we now tell children what they have to learn, how they have to learn, to sit still, and over the last few decades their potential for play has been dramatically reduced, to then do the same thing day in, day out. What are our time horizons now? I was brought up with work hard, study hard now, get a good job, and enjoy the rewards of life later. Maybe you can look at this and the story I've just read and see how difficult that might be for some people. But ironically, it comes from an environment that we've created.